So we had quite the Sunday night football game. I mean, what a game it was. The Baltimore Ravens really they played very well right from the jump and were able to just kind of have a almost a blowout win against the Patriots. I mean, it did get close in the middle there, but the second the Patriots started coming back, Baltimore just continued just playing well and they were able to get the victory. For most of the game, it was a two-score victory, and a huge part of that was just the Patriots could not stop Lamar Jackson, and a big reason is because nobody can really stop Lamar Jackson. I remember my first actual video that made over 1,000 views was on Lamar Jackson's first career start, and one thing I said in that video that is still true is that I do think this can be successful for a very long time, and the reason I think that way is because the Ravens aren't hiding anything. I kept hearing people say, well, once opposing defenses figure them out, then they're going to be in trouble, but I said I disagree, and the reason for that is because they're not hiding anything. They basically are going to tell you exactly what they're going to do. I mean, they get creative, they do things that most other teams don't do, but they really only do like 6 or 7 different things. It's really the fact that they execute it so well. That's what makes them so effective. I think the reason why more teams don't do this in the NFL and the reason why the Raiders are one of the teams that do it so frequently is simply the fact that most teams don't have Lamar Jackson. This guy is just a special athlete and it helps you in many different ways. So let's break down some of these plays and what really makes the Baltimore Ravens offense work, and we'll start things off with this play. What Baltimore is going to do is that they're going to have their center and their right guard double team that interior lineman right there, but then the guard will get off that double team to block a linebacker. But then what they're actually going to do is have the right tackle go out to block that New England player right over there. And so if you look on the screen, there are still 2 New England players that have yet to be blocked. It's simply the interior lineman and also a linebacker sort of adjacent with that right tackle. But what's unique about what they're going to do here is they're going to pull one of their tight ends over to block a linebacker over there, but really what's interesting is going to be who's going to block that New England player. And what's interesting about it is the answer is going to be nobody. And you'll see what I mean right here. I mean, the C just parts, he's right over there where he could potentially try to make this play. So this seems like it should be a disaster. And also another key factor here is that a linebacker is actually just breaking straight in. He's trying to run over and trying to make a tackle as well. So there are 2 guys who are going to end up getting unblocked on this play who have a straight shot to their halfback. Of course, Lamar Jackson could keep it himself, but typically you would think that you're still in a good enough situation that you can run over and try to make this tackle. However, Lamar Jackson accelerates so quickly, all he needs is 1 step. I mean, look at this. They take 1 step to the left, and Lamar Jackson, he just takes off and he gets the first down. That's all that he needs. He really doesn't need that much. Just give him a little bit, and you give him an inch, he takes a mile, and that's what makes him so impossible to stop. A lot of people keep saying, oh, just make sure that you don't make those little mistakes. Make sure that you're always just paying attention and you don't, get faked out at all. But the reality is, the margin for error is just so small against Lamar Jackson, it really is. Like this one's another example of it. What's going to happen is that, what's really interesting here is that the Baltimore Raven who's closest to the bottom half of the screen is not going to be blocking the Patriot who's closest to the bottom half of the screen. He's going to block the Patriot who's second closest in that direction. So again, there will be a New England player who is unblocked. It is that Patriot right over there, but that doesn't mean that Baltimore doesn't have a plan for them. It's very similar to the last thing. They're going to fake a handoff, and then Lamar Jackson will keep it himself and try to run around the edge. But just watch how well it works. I mean, if you notice the New England player, he is running in and trying to make a play. He is fully ready to try to make a tackle on the halfback, because that's kind of what you have to do, especially in this type of situation. But Lamar Jackson keeps it himself, and he's able to just walk in for a touchdown, and he does just walk in for it. But I mean, that's kind of what makes this Lamar Jackson's and Baltimore Ravens offense work, I think, is the fact that they can have plays like that. Because when you look at that play, you might say, okay, well, just make sure you stick to the outside. Don't give up the containment and just keep an extra eye on Lamar. But when you do that, it makes just running the ball with your halfback that much easier. It essentially always takes away a defender. Using these types of plays essentially just gives you an extra defender on every play, which makes it so tough to stop the run, which is why Baltimore is able to have so much success running the football. And that's kind of what makes them such a cool team to watch, I think, is the fact that literally against any defense, even against a defense that through 8 games had been putting up historic numbers, they can't stop them. When the Baltimore Ravens are executing these plays properly, they are the most unstoppable team in the NFL. In terms of a team that just needs to gain some yards on each play, they are the most difficult to stop if they're playing well, and they've been playing pretty well so far through 8 games. And again, really the key thing is, I think we all sit here and realize, okay, Lamar Jackson is fast, he accelerates quickly, so sure, he can gain some yards, but That's not just how this Ravens system works. There's several ways how it works. Like on this play, again, what's going to happen is that Baltimore's left tackle will not be blocking the Patriot who's closest to the bottom half of the screen. It'll be, one Patriot up, and instead it'll be a fullback who's going to block the Patriot on the bottom half of the screen. And then this isn't even going to be really too much of anything, except for Lamar Jackson's going to just flip the ball up to Hollywood Brown right there, who will then try to run and gain as many yards as possible. But again, watch how well this works. So he flips it up, and right off the bat, as you notice, that player is out of the way. He's not going to be able to make this play. He starts to run in, but then very quickly realizes, okay, it's a run to the bottom half of the screen. There's just too much speed going around there. Lamar isn't the only fast guy on this team. There's also Marquise Brown, and he's just as fast, just as a receiver. So he's going to get the edge on that one. We already realized that. But what's really interesting here is look at the two New England linebackers. They are very close to the top half of the screen. They're already creating contact. They fully think this is going to be a run with Lamar Jackson, or, maybe he'll flip it back to his halfback. But either way, they're thinking it's going to be a run to the top half of the screen. They will realize it pretty quickly, but again, now Marquise Brown is fast enough that little extra step was enough for him to gain a bunch of yards. So that's what this Baltimore Ravens offense is built around. It's built around speed, and it's built around just getting those slight, even just if it's just 1 yard, getting you 1 yard out of position, that's all they need. Some teams wouldn't be able to pull this off because they're not as quick, but the Ravens are just so fast, and I think it's a perfect way of building your system around your players as opposed to the other way around. I really do. I love what John Harbaugh is doing to this Baltimore Ravens offense. I think it's incredibly fun to watch. It was a huge risk, but it is paying off in a big way. I mean, they just beat the Patriots. And they're getting creative with it. So that way, I said that they basically just do only like the same 6 or 7 different things. But what they do is, with these, it's almost like they only really do 3 or 4 things actually. But they'll have a bunch of inconsistencies and a bunch of slight differences in each of those things. They might do a play where they have Lamar Jackson run the football a bunch of times, but they'll have slight differences to make it work better. And this play is a good example of just one slight difference, but it does make it work better. Where, once again, you're going to have a Baltimore Raven offensive lineman who's going to run over and try to block a defensive tackle as opposed to a defensive end. And so, like those last plays, typically what they would do is have their fullback just go out to block that New England Patriot right there, but they're not going to do that. He's going to fake as though he's blocking him, but instead go out to block a linebacker. But because of that, this now means that once again, Baltimore has to get around that player, but once again, of course, they have a plan for it. It's one of those RPO type things, although it's not actually an RPO, because usually the decision has already been made before the snap what Lamar should do, but it looks like an RPO. And essentially, as Lamar Jackson is getting ready to hand this ball off, it looks like it's going to be a handoff to the top half of the screen. And if it is, and you run to the middle of the field, this could allow for a huge run. So you have to be aware of that. So for that New England player, he's going to take a step to the top half of the screen, which you should be able to do without too many consequences. You should be able to just say, okay, I'm not going to give up containment. That's my job on this play. Do your job. That's what I'm going to do. But with Lamar Jackson's talent, you give him that one step, he just outruns him and still gets a solid 5 or 6 yards on that play, just from his speed above anything else. I just find this offense such a just entertaining offense to watch. Actually, a little thing to mark your calendars on, in 4 weeks, the Ravens play the 49ers. That'll be a really interesting game to see what happens there with a great defense and a great front seven, how they're able to do against this Baltimore Ravens offense. Because as of right now, it looks like nobody's going to be able to stop them. I mean, even in their 2 losses, they still scored 28 points and 25 points, respectively. So this is a team that's going to put up points no matter what. And one of the things I also keep mentioning is that it's not just the running game. Lamar Jackson can throw the football. I think running the football is what makes him special. But I mean, take a look at this play, for example. This is actually a key play in this game. 7 minutes left. It's 3rd down and 5. The Baltimore Ravens would really like to score some points here. It's a 1-score game. And so to try to get points, you have to get the conversion. So here's how this play is going to work. First off, take a look at what's going on right there. A Baltimore Raven is in motion, and since a New England player follows him, it gives Lamar Jackson a pretty good idea that this is probably going to be man coverage. And so that's key for him, because if you notice what's going on right here, those are the 3 routes that the Ravens receivers on the top half of the screen will be running. The 2 on the top half of the screen are going to be cutting in, and then his tight end is going to be running that route right there, which could absolutely end up getting open, where you see that circle. It's going to be a 1-1 matchup as this is a cover 0. There is no safety deep. So Lamar Jackson kind of sits here and says, hey, I have a big tight end in Mark Andrews. I trust that if I throw up a jump ball, he can make this grab. So he has faith in his receivers. He puts one up there for Andrews, who makes the catch. It looks like Andrews bailed him out there, but that's not really what happened at all. That was Lamar Jackson trusting his guy and also seeing that, hey, there's a defensive back who has his back turned against, my big tight end. I like this matchup. I trust that he can turn around and make the grab, and that's what he did. Well, it's kind of become a meme that the Ravens love tight ends so much. The reality of the situation is having a crucial tight end can be so much for them because just the fact that teams against them are going to try to beat them with speed. I mean, that is how the Ravens lost the game, was by, getting beat with speed, by defensive backs being able to outrun their receivers and outrun their halfbacks, and that really made things difficult for the Ravens. But having too many defensive backs out there can absolutely end up being a problem, because if you have a good tight end like Mark Andrews absolutely has been for Baltimore, then he can win those, 50-50 matchups pretty easily. So yeah, I mean, that's just why I love talking about this offense, is because the only way this offense is going to get stopped is if they beat themselves. It's if they don't make the right adjustments. I thought they didn't make the right adjustments in their playoff game against the Chargers. I felt like they waited too long to start passing the ball deeper down the field, which is what you sometimes have to do. And I also think that they're just a more talented team this year, especially on the offensive side of the ball, than they were last year. So I think that helps them a lot as well. And of course, it all starts with Lamar Jackson, who has been getting some MVP talk. I think through this point of the season, you have to give it to Russell Wilson, but I do think it's close enough that I could definitely see Jackson sort of overtaking that and winning it by the end of the season, but who knows, we're like halfway through the season. However, in terms of just a football player and a football team, the Baltimore Ravens are definitely a team I would not want to have to go up against.